The Cleaner by Michelle Murphy. I don't remember any of our conversations. They were always snippets anyway, little pleasantries in passing week after week for years. A lot of snippets. He had this great cadence when he said my name, always the same way, the same greeting. Hello, Michelle. It was so melodic, such a beautiful way to be spoken to. He was the talker. His brother spoke not a word. The first time I ever heard the brother speak was at the funeral. He didn't speak at the funeral, but after. I went up to him, heart still heavy in the afterglow of the Spanish service, still reeling from watching the casket procession, seeing the widow's devastated face, and admiring the priest with his heavy African accent and his excellent Spanish. I need to learn Spanish. I said my name first, touching my chest. Sometimes it's hard for people to place you out of context. I like to be helpful. Michelle, I said. Dixie Canyon, the name of my apartment building, a new moniker for myself. I manage it, Dixie Canyon, a 15-unit apartment building of equally awesome and ridiculous tenants, have for 9 years. In fact, the cleaners are the only vendor that I didn't replace after years of building mismanagement. Gone were the thieving plumbers, the mentally unstable electrician, overpriced locksmith, grumpy handyman, and incompetent roofers of years prior. Just the cleaner remained. The silent brother stares at me blankly until recognition and surprise register simultaneously. I hug him. I'm a hugger. It will live in my memory as one of the most awkward hugs I've ever been a part of. I'm still glad I did it. I needed it. I don't remember what I said after that. I'm so sorry. We are so heartbroken. I don't know. Sounds like something I would say anyway. He was with me long enough for the recognition. He said my name softly, completely unlike his brother. Michelle. In a whisper, like a secret. That was it. My name, the half-assed hug, and then he was gone. Not literally gone, but his mind definitely. He glanced at his phone. He glanced everywhere, landing nowhere. I excused myself and left. Walking through the church parking lot, I looked at this part of town unknown to me, its signs I could not read. I played the service over again in my head. I am grateful I was there. I loved the cleaner. I loved the way he said my name. He had a family. They loved him, clearly. He was a grandfather. He had a sister. The new facts of the cleaner's life freshly revealed to me. I never knew. I never asked. Why didn't I ask? I was irritated. What a shitty job they did. It was almost like they didn't even clean. Did I see them this week? No, I wasn't here Friday afternoon. I let it go. I'll talk to him next week. He is so nice. I'll gently inquire about this past Friday, give him the opportunity to offer an excuse. Maybe it was just one of them. Maybe it was the silent brother only. Doesn't matter. It will easily be resolved. Next Friday, I'll talk to him. The following week, I texted my brother. Dave's not my biological brother, but he's like family, and I'm closer to him than any of my actual siblings. Hey, I'm not going to be home when the cleaners come today. Can you talk to them? See what's up? Make sure they mop this week? Dave lives at Dixie Canyon too, just below me. Same layout as our apartment. He used to live with us, with my husband and I. We were considering having a baby but needed his bedroom. We made some internal maneuvers and now we are all just peas in a pod in our upstairs downstairs arrangement. Plus, we did have that baby, so it all worked out. He texted a few hours later, no show. God damn it. I'm pissed now. I quickly find the apartment phone. It's a really annoying cheap BlackBerry. My boss, the owner of the apartment building, doesn't pay for any of my office materials. I didn't know much when I started this job years ago, but I knew enough to get a second line that I would only use for tenants and vendors. Paid off dearly over the years. People are nutty. Best to have boundaries. I call the cleaner. It rings for a bit, then goes to voicemail. It's annoying. Just that automated voice that repeats the phone number you dialed. I know the goddamn phone number. I just dialed it. I take a deep breath before the beep. It's something I always do. Check my attitude, put on my nice voice. No one likes a bitch. I don't remember what I said. I know I was nice. I know I must have said something like, we missed you this week, yada yada, something nice. The subtext was subtle but clear. Where the hell are you? I count the weeks in my head. It wasn't 2 weeks since I last saw him. It's been at least 3. The shitty job I thought they did last week is because they weren't here last week at all. What the fuck? 3 weeks? I emailed my boss. I'm pissed, but I tone it down, namely for 2 reasons. I like the cleaner, and again, no one likes a bitch. I can protect him over 2 missed weeks. I did, in fact, protect him, not report his absences. But 3, that's somehow personal to me. That he didn't show up for 3 weeks and didn't even bother to communicate with me is not okay. My boss's email comes back quick. It's not what I expected. Michelle, it simply says, I'm sorry. The cleaner was killed in an auto accident almost 2 weeks ago. I'm in shock. I frantically count the weeks in my head again. He cleaned on Friday 3 weeks ago. He was here cleaning with his silent brother. I missed him that day. I missed the whole week, apparently. I didn't notice the dust until the following Friday had passed. 2 weeks passed. Nobody cleaned because the cleaner was dead. He died the week before on Friday night. He died just after cleaning our building. He died at a stoplight in Reseda in his old Toyota pickup, the innocent victim of a street racing accident. He died. Edgar Pineda died. Death is weird. It's not the dead part that I get. It's the dead and gone part. The gone is where it hurts. My best friend growing up lost her brother a few years back. He was trouble his entire life. Totally hot when I was a teenager. Cocky Kenny, full of swagger. He was dangerous. Not the sexy kind of dangerous where you don't know what's going to happen, but kind of like it anyway. No, Kenny was dangerous, like someone who was living life with no boundaries, rules, or fucks. I knew it back then. He was doing too much life all at once. It was scary. I secretly liked that he flirted with me, made me feel special. He had game, I had none. He made me feel pretty in that terribly uncomfortable teen phase, not a girl, not yet a woman. I stayed a safe distance from him back then. Couldn't catch him anyway. I never thought too much about him in the decades that followed. My best friend would occasionally tell me some sad updates, rehabs, various women, the seizures that were now almost daily. He died in the woods a few years ago in northern Michigan, up north we call it, or the UP. He got into a fight with a girlfriend who called the cops on him, but he had a ton of priors, including a domestic charge with this girl. He took some pills, left the house, and vanished, missing for weeks. Reality is, he took those pills, went off in the snowy trails of upper Michigan, sat down on a few minutes to rest, and likely froze to fucking death an hour after he left the house. My friend is still broken about it. It was better when he was missing. Missing. Still had hope. I bought a card for Edgar's widow. I wanted to have the whole building sign it. I wanted to tell her how much her husband meant to me, to us. I wanted to gather money for her in his honor. I bought the card and did nothing. I also didn't do any cleaning. The dust continued to grow. The place began looking a bit tired, like a kid who badly needed their hair brushed. Months went by. My boss was on the hunt for new cleaners. I put a listing together of all the responsibilities Edgar had. It was a lot. I stared at it, remembering I wanted to suggest a bonus for him at Christmas. I thought this every year and did nothing. The cleaner's death continued to take a toll on me. When I finally gave it into the sorry state of our building, I wandered downstairs into the storage room. It wasn't until I had the mop in my hand that I felt it. The weighty thought that his were the last hands on it, that he simply placed it there after work, got into his Toyota, drove home, and died on the way. I swept and mopped the lobby, not realizing until after that I just used the last bit of his cleaning solution. I had tossed the empty foreign bottle in recycling, hadn't bothered to look at the name. I smelled the deep lemony scent, the cleaner's choice. Did he buy it for the smell? The price? Same as me, he was expected to pay for his own supplies. The lobby smelled that way always, and now it never would again. A happy hour erupted in the Dixie Canyon courtyard that evening, a common Friday night tradition. The moms in the building armed with rosé and Trader Joe's apps. It was always a welcome circle. The Dixie kids on their scooters, screaming and racing around the interior of the building, a throwback to our own childhoods, except we had blocks to play and these kids get 50 feet. Dads coming home, happily greeted by the courtyard cheerleaders, shouts to join the party. Not everyone takes part, of course. The millennial tenants return home from their 9 to 5s, heads down, scurrying into their apartments, no desire or ability to engage in neighborly chit-chat. The only company for them on a Friday night will be found online, likely the only conversation with their DoorDash delivery person. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they'll go out later, when the Dixie kids are asleep, when the Dixie parents are in their sweatpants and Netflix. Perhaps they'll Uber to WeHo, drink $17 craft cocktails all night, go home with a stranger. I skipped the happy hour. I laid on my floor instead and sobbed uncontrollably. Quite ugly, really. I cried for the cleaner, his family, for myself. I looked at the merriment down in the courtyard. How can some people be so full of joy and I so miserable? Why was I so miserable? Edgar Pineda, July 15th, 1967 to March 29th, 2019. Kenneth Napora, July 2nd, 1972 to January 31st, 2015. The end. Oh, the story always gets me.
It's a really good story. Yeah, good read, Megan.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it got me too. I just like am haunted by her using the last of his cleaning material. That's just crazy. Like, and it's
Yeah.
something that most people wouldn't pick up, you know? I think
Right.
that's what.
Yeah. And I think, oh, I was just going to say, I think when writers pick up on things like that, like something that's a texture or a smell or something colorful or bright that they see, it's such a powerful image. And I think it's something that all of us can relate to. Like we know that smell and we've been in that lobby and we associate that smell with a person who's no longer around, and it's just, I think it's very powerful to anyone who hears that because you have that connection to that smell.
Yeah, that's a good point. I haven't thought about that before, but like even people who are not writers, like I have talked to people who when they lose someone, a smell will come into their life and they'll be like, that's the person. Like I remember they carried this perfume or this cologne or they smoked this. And I've read articles where scent takes you back to moments in your history. So yeah, the lemon cleaner.
That's very powerful. Yeah, I'm so happy that Michelle let us use this story. It kind of fits nicely into my literary mindset of the book that I read yesterday into this story. It just fits so nicely.
And she was such a great interview too. Unfortunately, due to COVID and everything, we're not able to do live interviews, but I think you guys will enjoy this. We're going to post it now, right? Hey everyone, this is a pre-recorded video with Michelle. You just heard her story. Isn't she pretty? Look at her. I gotta make it awkward at first. So how are you doing?
I'm great. I'm really good, surprisingly, with everything
With
going on in the world.
speaking of Michelle, do you know behind you that like the decorative pieces kind of look like little Corona balls?
My set dressing. Yeah. Um, I'm currently filming in my house for Beachbody. I'm filming this workout video. I'm part of the cast. It was supposed to be 6 weeks, and in the sixth week, we were ordered to shelter in place, and so it became this virtual thing at home. So it should have been done at 6 weeks, and this was in February, and it's still going right now. So I made it past the test group. It turned into this virtual group that was so beautiful. The friendships that I've made with all of these men and women, because we just ended up, although we were at home, we were all on this like new lifestyle journey, which included working out and taking care of yourself and taking care of your mental health. And it was just supposed to be something so small, and it turned into something so amazing. And then for me to ultimately be cast in the final product now is, I mean, it's like I made it to the end. I made it to the end of the race. It's crazy, and it's been wild. So I've lost like over 20 pounds. I've lost like 19 inches all over my body. Like I'm fitting in all of my clothing again, and that's such a weird thing at a time where, we all wanted to crawl under blankets and eat mashed potatoes and watch, Queer Eye, right? I mean, so yeah, I'm really excited to be a part of it.
So I know Michelle not through my writers group, even though she ended up going to the writers group because I dragged her. Anytime I like somebody who's super talented, I try to drag them into the things that I like. But Michelle is a super talented actress that I worked with, and during writers group, she brought a piece in, the piece that you listened to, and I was like, oh man, this moved my heart. And then I nagged her to submit the piece, and I won. I won. She submitted the piece. All of us were excited about it, and now she's here. So I'm curious, Michelle, like what your creative influences for the piece were, if you want to talk a little bit about what made you write it.
You know, I I have never really, I remember I'm always somebody who wants to know, like, how do you get to be a writer? Like, what do you do? And I remember um, somebody saying, well, you just write. Writers write. There is no book. There is no, just like a diet pill. There's no diet pill. You got to put in the effort every single damn day. And so this was something that I knew in writers group. It was like my first reading, and I had to write something. And like every time I would go to sit down to write, I would just be like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. What is the structure? What am I doing? I don't know. Blah, blah, blah. And so I believe it was you that told me something about like trash draft or something. Is
Oh
like
yeah,
like
I call them my ugly babies. Yeah, like
sure,
it's
vomit
before
draft or something.
vomit, just
Yeah,
vomit up the thing. It's before first draft. Who
right.
cares? Nobody's gonna see it but you. Kind of draft. Yeah.
So the cleaner is my vomit draft, and nobody's gonna see it but me, right?
Right.
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 So, but I mean, that's what the thing was. So I was like, this is too hard. I'm struggling here to try to understand something, so why don't I just write?
Hmm.
And this is a true story. This is about, somebody who meant something very dearly to me, the cleaner here in my building.
Hmm.
And his death hit me so hard, and it was somewhat easier to write once I could think about him and the things I wanted to say about him.
Hmm.
And then I was able to just write. Like I got out of my head and I put it all down, and I didn't think about structure, and I didn't think, and I just I just wrote from my heart. And I guess that's the key,
Yeah, I mean, you were
you
so
know.
honest in the piece. Like, I really resonated with some of the things that you said, like that you had so many plans for things that you wanted to do, but you didn't do them. I mean, that's human. You
Right,
like have these great things you want to do, and
right.
unfortunately, in this situation, there's that's such a
Yeah,
clear line,
right. Well, because that's what we do. We all know death is coming for all of us. It's a thing, but, and we are so, hello,
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 where are you?
not now.
For the podcast
Um,
listeners, we pretended to be seeing death behind us.
be terrified. Yes,
Yeah.
death was there. Um, it, that's not the part about death, that hits us. I don't believe. I mean, and I wrote, the words, it's the gone part when you're gone, because you, at some point, it's like, oh, I need to talk to, oh, I can't,
Mm.
or I wish I would have, I, the regret of, I wish I would have told them how much I love them. Or I wish, what was the last thing we said? And like, that's where all of the emotions and the feelings, and that lives on in us, And so, yeah,
Oh man, and like I also felt the part where like you're getting annoyed at this person and then you find out the new information that makes you yeah.
right. I was so, I was so mad because I felt, uh, I run a building, and I'm a female, and so I have to deal, over time I've dealt with a lot of sexist kind of attitudes
Mm.
with certain things, and certainly not from the cleaner. But so I constantly had to be, I know what's up. I know how to handle my stuff here. And I remember when the cleaner wasn't showing up, I mean, over the course of weeks, I felt like, this is somebody I trust.
Mm.
Why wouldn't he call me? Why wouldn't he tell me? Like, I just remember feeling so, like, betrayed almost. Like, you were on my team,
Yeah, yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, and then to find out of his passing that way, I mean, I will just never forget it. Um, yeah.
I think people are going to resonate with that in their own ways. We've all been in that situation where we got really upset to find out, that the truth was nothing like we had imagined.
Right. Well, and keep in mind, weeks had went past since he had passed, right? So when I found out, the night that I found out, I immediately jumped online, and his wake was the following day. And so I found out just in time. And then I talked about it in the cleaner, about how I went to this church
Mm.
and listened to, this whole service in a language that I don't speak, and all of these emotions where I was, and to see people from his life. And, I mean, it was so surreal. And I just, it's like I could remember it so well to write it because I was so present. And to see him like coming down, I mean, I still get emotional about it. It was a very beautiful service, and I'm so glad that I was able to go. But, I mean, it was a tiny closure, and I think that's where the cleaner really came from, because I had all of these things that I didn't have closure to, the things I wanted to do for him, and to tell him how much he meant to me, and like get Christmas bonuses for him, and I mean, I would have loved to do those things, and yet I didn't.
So,
Didn't.
so is that what you got from doing the piece? Is a little bit of closure? Like, what did writing this, once you were finished, what did you
Yeah,
get from that?
absolutely. Absolutely. I got peace rather than closure. I definitely got peace. And then, the second part of it, with the introduction of my best friend and her brother that passed, that was harder because her brother's death has haunted me. I mean, she's been my best friend for 30 years. And his death was so haunting, the way that he died. And we've talked, her and I, many times about that, about, the circumstances and the life that he lived. And I didn't know I was going to interject Kenny into the cleaner's story. And it just came. And so when and I remember even when I brought it to writers group, people said, that portion is actually another story that doesn't belong in this story. And I thought, oh, okay, maybe they're right. And then reworking it and looking at it again, and it absolutely did, because, that is what was able to make the connection for me about death. It's not the death part, it's the gone part. It's that. So
Yeah, you were a little nervous about bringing this piece in just because it was true to life. Do you want to talk a little bit about
yeah,
that?
sure. Yeah, I absolutely. You know, I didn't want to exploit Kenny's passing. And it's a true story, just like Edgar's story is a true story. I mean, this is life. These two deaths happened this way. And Christy is she's my sister. She's my best friend for since since high school. And I I talked to her about, I called her and I was like, she's on vacation. She's on vacation right now. And I'm like, I have to talk. I have to, I've got this heavy heart, and I'm like, I want to ask your permission, because I can take this out and I can, I think, what did you say? Because you and I talked about it. I could substitute
Substitute.
something. And she was like, I wouldn't trust anybody but you
Oh.
to write this or to say that. I mean, she was so like, here is my, absolutely, you can talk about it. Absolutely, you can use my brother's name. Absolutely, you can, you know, include him and his story. And yeah, I mean, it was just like that permission kind of freed something up in me, because as storytellers, you know what I mean? There's good, I love a good story. But it's like, when you're talking about somebody, you know what I mean? That somebody could be like, hey, that's me. That's me. I get fearful, and this whole story is about fear, fear, of the things that, you don't say or that you don't do. And, I mean,
What was the biggest challenge in writing it? I think it might be what you're talking about right now, but for you, what is the
yeah,
Yeah.
it was, it was trusting myself. I love the vulnerability. Like, I love to deep dive into a character's vulnerability. I'm all about vulnerability with somebody else. But with me,
Yes.
actually me, I'm like, no, a little bit, no. And I have to really trust you, I really and so this whole piece was so vulnerable for me. And I think that's why it was so scary, because I could be rejected by the writers group. My friend could be upset that I wrote this piece about her brother. I could do a bad job with the cleaner, and be disrespectful to his memory. And yeah, so it was a lot. And it was that. And then just trusting myself to go, you know what? Let's just write the damn thing and get it out there. Let's lean into this a little bit, because, you know,
I
this is
love,
it.
like, from knowing you, it seems like this is a thing. Something very small turns into something that you learn a lot from. Like, it becomes like this full journey. Like, I bet you never
Sure.
imagined that this short story it wouldn't just be in writers group. You'll like have people on YouTube Live and the podcast venues listening to this now, you know? I
No, I mean, that's one thing though, that I'm so supportive of people that I love, and I certainly love you.
love
And
you.
so, I mean, that to me, like, if I can help lift somebody else up, you know what I mean, and what they're doing, then I'm all about that. It's harder when it's like me, but because, you asked and this is important to you, then I'm like, oh, if this helps you, then I'm happy.
I would
So,
love for the listeners to respond on what what they got from your piece, and then maybe you can check it out to see if there are any comments. And if you have any questions for Michelle, we will also be relaying them to her so that she can answer any questions you might have about the piece. I loved it. It was beautiful. I think people are going to get so much out of it. Thank you for being so brave and honest. I really think that's going to help people connect with the piece as well. We're going to have Michelle's links at the bottom of this video. Check out all her acting stuff. And next week we have Bonnie Milani.
Ooh,
Yeah, she's our.
I love Bonnie.
What do you love about Bonnie, Michelle?
I mean, she's a character. I mean, I love a character, man. That's my favorite. I mean, anybody, that's what I love. And she's so brave. And I mean, like, I'm always like, sometimes fearful of saying the wrong thing in a group or something like that, like, again, vulnerability. I don't want to put that out there. But like, that's what I love about Bonnie. I don't know her very well, but I love that she just is like,
she's like an anchor. Like, she can like anchor anything. Like, if there was a large ship behind her, she would be able to anchor it down with her personality. Yeah, like we already did a pre-interview for Bonnie, and it was amazing, like, you would imagine. For the listeners, Bonnie is a sci-fi short story writer. And let's see, she gave me her blurb. I'll read it really quickly before we end. Let me try to do my sci-fi voice. Condemnation to Sisyphus, a world where even the grass is out to get you, and the locals resemble 9-foot-tall, sentient tarantulas. For 9 years, convicted killer Mahdi Koshtar has weaseled, worried, and lied to earn a spot on the prisoner's early release list. Now her reprieve is at hand. All she has to do is convince someone else to take her place. So that's next week, y'all.
yeah.
Yeah. Michelle, thank you so much for this interview. It was so good.
Thank you all for being in my bedroom that I've staged. So
It's perfect. It's perfect. I bet some podcast listeners are going to be so curious they'll log into the YouTube.
Thank you. This was fun. And thank you.
So much fun. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
No one reads short stories anymore. I really don't know what they're written for. Go write a short story and throw it out the door. 'Cause no one reads short stories, funny, sad, or gory. No one reads short stories anymore. Yes, no one reads short stories.